So we're in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10. We're continuing along in a group of instructions that Jesus is giving to his apostles. What happened was, if you're visiting and you haven't been here in the series, Jesus called his disciples together and appointed 12 of them to be apostles, told them he's sending them out, and told them to save, heal, and deliver, really. But how he told them to do this was to make this statement to them. And he told them whether they believe or they don't believe, whether they receive you or they reject you, tell them the kingdom of heaven is here. And I think that's interesting for believer and unbeliever, for the main message to be that Jesus is telling his apostles to preach. Later on, he tells them to make disciples, but he also tells them, go preaching the kingdom. Preach the kingdom. When you decipher these words, what it means is preach the king. To have a kingdom, there must be a king. A couple weeks ago in these verses, he made it clear. No student is greater than his teacher. No slave greater than their master. He wanted us to know we have to have a king. We need to have a master. We need to have a teacher. And I asked the crowd that day, do you have a teacher? Who teaches you? Who is your master? Who owns you? See, the vernacular was really clear in their day, because today nobody owns a person here in America. The closest is parents' control of their children, probably, or a warden's control of his prisoners. But they didn't have any concept like that. It was not a hard concept for them because many people owned many people. Slavery was part of everyday life in their world. And he's telling you, are you a slave to somebody? And who he was talking about was God the Father. Is your life owned, submitted to, lived under someone? And he was telling them that they have a Father in heaven. We go back to the Sermon on the Mount. The entire Sermon on the Mount is trying to teach Jewish people called the children of Israel that they have a Father in heaven. They didn't have a concept for Father in heaven. They had a concept for being children of Israel. They didn't have a concept for being fathered. That God was a true Father to them. And so he told them, when you pray, pray our Father who art in heaven. Everything he told them. Pray us not like the Gentiles who have no Father in heaven. He said all those things in the Sermon on the Mount, and we sometimes just pass them over because we live in a different time. But I want to make sure we study the Gospels in the context of what he was trying to tell humankind, because I think we find ourselves in a very similar situation of religious indoctrination from the time we were a child to where we are dead in the head to the truths that Jesus is telling us. And we need to keep our heart open. Like the Apostle Paul, who said, my prayer for you is that you have a spirit of wisdom and revelation, that he would open the eyes of your heart that you might know him better. That's my prayer for my church. That's my prayer for everyone who hears my voice, that you would have a spirit of wisdom and revelation. That he would open the eyes of your heart, that you would know him better, and that you could come to the point of really believing that he is your Father. It's easy to say you're his son, you're his daughter, and never make him your father. From the time I first became a father, within a short time, my little girl began to speak. And I remember the things she would say to me. I remember this one phrase when I would turn the lights off in her bedroom. I don't want to darken, Daddy. And I couldn't turn I don't want to darken. And she'd say it all the time. And you could not turn the switch off. The father's heart for his little baby girl's fear began to change. Her understanding of me being her father changed me more than my understanding that she was my daughter. The way she communicated, the way she clung to me, the way she depended on me. And then as more children came along, I really began to understand what father means. The resurrection from the dead, Easter Sunday, is about this one thing. Jesus came to help you, most all of you being Gentile born, not Jewish. You could have a Father in heaven. Without the resurrection, you could not have a Father in heaven. The power over death, the power of forgiveness, the ability to become brand new, born again, the mulligan in life given to you, the redo, would not have been possible had death not been conquered. So we celebrate today Easter Sunday. And we celebrate it every year to remember that he conquered death and allowed you and I the opportunity to become children of God. But more than that, for him to become our Father who art in heaven. Right. Us to begin to understand him being our Father. Right. And to begin to learn what that means. Today Jesus is telling them some crazy stuff. Some stuff that disturbs everybody. And I'll try with all of my heart to tell you what he's trying to tell us. And I pray with all of my heart that we will get to it, that we will hear what he says. So where we are is chapter 10, verse 32. And here we go. Therefore, everyone who confesses me before men, I will also confess him before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I will also deny him before my Father who is in heaven. Do not think that I came to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the members of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. I believe that we'll probably be in these verses for a few weeks, I hope, because there's just so much there that makes us not understand. What do you mean, Jesus? You came to make mothers and daughters against each other? What he's saying is that mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, brothers and brothers and sisters will begin to be against each other when they believe in him. If he did not come, there would be no chance to believe in him. But because he came, many will believe in him, and families and friends and religions and nations will be torn apart. Because people will be offended by your belief in him. I know that in my own family, shortly after I found out God was real, gave my life to Jesus Christ and surrendered. And I truly surrendered. I got it. I got that I wasn't inviting him to come bless me. I got that I was giving him my life. And I'm so grateful that the end result of giving him my life was that he blessed me. I can tell you that my life has been blessed for these 43 years since that day. But I didn't go to the altar to get him to bless me. I went to give him what I had wrecked in hopes that he would take it. To my joy, he did. But I remember going home to my religious family. We had been raised in religion. None of us really had a relationship. It was based on religious tenets. And I quit smoking pot. And I quit drinking alcohol. And I quit chasing girls at the lake. I hung out at the lake, but I shared Jesus every day. And no one was bothered by this. I remember a friend of mine at one of the first weddings I went to where I said I didn't drink, picked me up. He was a linebacker who eventually played 8 years with the 49ers. He was a very massive, strong man. We were young, but he picked me up and carried me to the kegger. You're not stopping today. And I said, sorry, dude, you're going to have to hurt me. I am stopping today. But very few people took offense at what the results of Jesus taking over, being the owner of my life. Except at home around the dinner table, man, They were never offended that I chose to do something. They were offended that my choice was seen by them as me judging their actions. And I became quite a bit the outcast. I fasted for them. I prayed for them. I loved them. They're my family. Right. But it caused strife amongst us. I remember when my brother gave his life to Jesus. I stood in front of him and told him, "You say Jesus to me one more time, and I'm going to beat you. Just try me." I had already, as the youngest, grown to be the biggest and the strongest and the fastest, and I was ready to beat him. And if he had said Jesus again to me, I would have beat him. His Christianity caused brother against brother. Right. And he backed up and started crying. "I just want you to know what I know, man. Right. Get out of my face." Good. My giving my life to Jesus caused enmity with my other siblings, with my parents, with my cousins, with my everybody, right. With my friends eventually, because they got tired of me preaching Jesus to them. But the blessings began to come into my life, and I really began to understand what he's saying. When you decide to give your life to Jesus, and he's talking to Jewish people, and he's even telling them, go to the Jews. They're not going to like you telling them that I'm the Messiah. They're not going to like you telling them the king is here and his name is Jesus. You heard the legend of this Jesus who's raising the dead and healing the blind? He's the Messiah you've been waiting for. They're not going to like that. Your brothers aren't going to like that. Jesus' own brothers didn't like it, that they called him the Messiah. Their mother knew it, but they didn't like it. One of the brothers became one of the more famous Christians of all time, who died for the belief that his brother was the Messiah. But at first, it brought enmity in their family. Coming to give your life to Jesus causes trouble sometimes. Right. I have seen so many different issues occur. I think back Adam and Eve, and the devil came to Eve. And what's interesting is he just asked her some questions. Did he not say this? Did he say that? You know, this is what he wants. And he told her a few lies. She went to Adam, and she told him a few things. And they were deceived by people just saying, what about this and what about that? Did you think of this? Well, I think of Jesus in the wilderness and the devil coming to him to try to deceive him. And it wasn't just you're wrong. It was questions. It was seduction. It was seducing. It was words that kind of just lead you a little bit and a little bit. And Jesus said no. And he beat the devil at his game. But you and I live in a world where maybe we think that stopped happening. Two people come forward and give their life to the Lord, one serious and one not. And they're living in sin together, and one decides, I have to do this, and it causes strife. Married people come together, and one hears Jesus talk about giving and wants to give. And it causes strife. It causes anger. It causes fighting. You hear a message like this today, and it makes you mad. To think that your actions or your words are seducing people to follow the devil. We need to be careful what we say. Are we parroting and imitating what the devil says? Jesus said, anyone who confesses me before the Father, just before he said this, I will confess them. Anyone who denies me, I will deny them. And I think about that. What does confess and deny mean? Does it really mean I confess, I believe? Is that all it is? I confess, I believe, and then I just go. So I decided to look up some of these words, and I'm not a big word definer for you. Every once in a while I do it, and so I wanted to know what confess means. What if, how far do you have to go to have confessed Jesus? And how far do you have to go before you're guilty of denying? Because I have found out that if Jesus says, I'll deny you or I'll confess you, he's usually pretty true to his word. It's something I have found that I can count on him to be true to his word. And he says he'll confess me or deny me based on these words, confess and deny. What the heck's it mean? Do I even want him to confess me before the Father? Well, I would like to tell you that before I knew the word, I knew it's probably pretty important that he confess me before the Father or I'm doomed. I don't have a chance if Jesus isn't backing me. If he's denying me, that one's going to leave a red mark for me. I'm just telling you about me. I probably have already messed this game up. I'm going to need him to be on my team, or I'm going to lose. All right? So this word confess comes from a Greek word, and it's a whole lot more about location or joining than it is words. It means very little about words. It means about there with me. If you are there with me before men, then I will have you there with me before my Father. I wonder why these guys translated it confess. Wow, that is so much better. I really like this guy Strong, the way he put his dictionary together. And so I like to look at his words, what he says, when he compiled all the definitions of all the scholars. When he says, confess me, if you live with me, I will live with you. If you want to live with me with the Father, I will live with you with the Father. I never heard it put like that. I liked how Strong put it. But I think that the devil comes along and says, wouldn't that be about works? Wouldn't that be about you have to do something to get it? And I'm thinking about that. Almost every human alive believes you've got to do something. So no matter where you stop this, like say you believe, everybody, I haven't met anyone yet that says you can be safe to know you're going to live with the Father and never believe. Everybody says you have to believe. So isn't believing a work? So at some point, salvation has to be dependent on something, a belief in Jesus Christ. If you listen to Jesus, that's what he says. If you put your life on the line, believe in me, then I'll put my life on your line with you in front of the Father. The apostles found out that when they faced martyrdom, persecution, I remember the two guys, Paul and Silas, in the jail singing hymns and songs and spiritual songs, and the angel opened the door. If you'll be in prison with me, I will be in prison with you. If you will walk through this life trusting me, I will walk through this life trusting you. And he who is faithful in the little things will be given charge over much. He who is faithful with the little things will be given much. To him whom much is given, much is required. Sounds like works to me. Sounds like something we do. Somehow we respond to what he says to make sure that word deny doesn't come up in our vernacular or his. When speaking about Steve Orsillo, I need Jesus to never say the word I deny him. I need to make sure. And so I need to know, how do you qualify for being denied? Well, it's used in two ways. One is to deny, refuse, disavow, Contradict. How about contradict? That one freaked me out. You mean I need to be right and not contradict him? Better get serious about being right and not contradicting him. When he says, you must, I need to make sure I say you don't have to. That would be contradiction. You see what I'm saying? He says, you must, anyone who would come after me, you must first deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. I better not say anything to the contrary. That would be contradiction, right? That would be me denying him. Then he says he's going to deny me, which means he's going to disavow me, refuse me, reject me, contradict me. He's going to say the truth no matter what I say. If I step up and say, this is the truth, he's going to say, no, that's not the truth. He's going to contradict me. I believe that if I'm being wooed by the enemy to believe something that isn't true, I can always back away from the enemy and ask him to teach me, and he always does. Right. And I'm always amazed when he teaches me, when he shows me the truth in the Bible, when he leads me into righteousness, when I bow my head and surrender and submit to him. I need you. I'm confused. I don't know what this means. He always shows me. I do not disavow him. I do not reject him. I do not deny him. But instead I confess him. Where he is, I will be. What he's doing, I will join. So many of my loved disciples who walk with me in this world, they go out into this world and they are told things and they come back and they're confused. And I say, why are you confused? Well, my uncle told me, or my brother told me. That Steve Orsillo is all about money, man. Are you just going to make him rich? When are you going to go take care of yourself? Well, your uncle, your brother, your whatever don't know me. You know me. What do you say about me? What is your evidence? What have you decided? I was just buying a trailer the other day, and a guy says, must be hard for you when everybody's just in this Christian leadership for money. And I said, I really don't know anybody that's in it for the money, because there really isn't any. I mean, we live in a time where 1% of people even give. Anybody who's in it for the money in Oroville isn't really very smart. They could be in a bigger city. That wasn't a very smart choice to make, really. I can tell you that me and my wife refuse to take a salary to lead this church because we want to be able to speak to that lie. We want to be able to confess that he takes care of us. We don't get a dime of that offering you put. We don't take a salary so that we can confess to you that Jesus Christ is faithful to us and he takes care of us. I am with him in trusting him to take care of my tomorrows. And he will be with me in my tomorrows. You follow me? If you confess me before men, if you confess me at the family table, if you say to your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your sons, and your daughters, I have to be faithful to the Lord. It's going to cause strife. You always choose the church over us. You always choose the Lord over us. You're just being fooled. You're just ignorant. You're confused. Well, I certainly have had that said about me more than once. And I always want to listen to it, and I always want to, okay, let me look. No, I'm not. I have to follow him. Right. Here's the thing, this is what I say usually. This is what I believe he's told me. And until proven otherwise, I'm following him. And if it turns out I'm wrong, here's what I always love. I love to be in the position that if I'm wrong, I win anyway. Right. Yeah. Never once does he say that when you strive to do well, and you strive to enter by the narrow door, you strive to follow, you seek, you ask, you knock. Never does it once say you'll be disappointed.
Right.
It doesn't say you have to be all right. It doesn't say you have to be all perfect. It's all about the heart and where you are. If you deny me, if you reject me, disavow me with your actions, I will disavow you. If you confess me, if you are there with me before men. Ladies and gentlemen, you are man. Mankind. The male and the female of mankind sits before me, and I confess to you that I am with Jesus to the end. He is good no matter what happens in my life. I pray to you that if crucifixion comes back in vogue and I am on the cross and you have the opportunity to see me, I pray that I will be saying things like Stephen said, Father, forgive them. I pray that I will win and I will finish the race. I pray that you can confess this before men.
Good.
I pray that you can see it in your life, that I am with people. I am with people who belong to him, who have a master, who have a king, who have a Father who art in heaven.
That's right.
And that all that I have is his.
Come on.
He goes where he wants it, where he tells me. It's really awesome how often he tells me to use it for my joy. It's really awesome how often he tells me to use it for others' joy. And it's just awesome to be part of this walk with Jesus, where we are where he is, doing what he does.
Come on.
How do you know what he does? He's very clear. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was a stranger and you invited me in. That guy, those sheep in that story, they were confessing Jesus before men. Where you are, I will be. That power to feel God, see God, know God, came through Easter Sunday, the day of the resurrection. The power for the Holy Spirit to live in the sinful flesh of man came from the power over death at the resurrection. Jesus ascended into heaven and said, I will not leave you alone, but I will send you a comforter.
Right.
That Holy Spirit was never available for a man to have, for a man to live in, swim in, breathe in, sleep in, walk in. It has never been easier up till the day of the resurrection. It has made it easy to walk in his presence, to feel his eyes upon you, his arms around you, his love in your heart. He said, my Father and I will make our home in you. It's never been easier to have God make his home in you than since the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the conquering of death. When the prophets saw this day coming, they said, oh, death, where is your sting now? When he does this, you will have no more power, death. You will have no more power, world. People will be set free, their spirits. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. They will mount up with wings like eagles and fly and soar. That's how I feel about my life since the Holy Spirit's made his home in me. And I'm telling you, I've been hearing Christianity all my life, and I never had Jesus live in me. I threatened a little girl at high school. Also, I threatened her. I got threatening to a girl because she kept telling me about Jesus. My answer was, I already know him. I go to church every Sunday. I didn't know nothing. I didn't. Get out of my face. The second concert I ever went to, a Christian concert, the first one I met Jesus at, The second one, I heard my name in the far distant. Steve Orsillo. I looked, and there was that girl from high school running at me across the parking lot. What are you doing at a Christian concert? I told her earlier, I had told her, I already know. Maybe you've thought you knew because maybe you thought you believed. But you might have. On the level of you accept the facts, you might have believed. But Jesus isn't saying anyone who believes in me in that way. He's saying anyone who is with me, who is there with me in this life of sacrifice, in this life of giving, in this life of holiness and righteousness, in this life of confession, I will be with them. That's what he's saying. And if you've been looking for an opportunity to finally cast down the belief that has failed you, I ask people all the time, when you're running amok, when your life was miserable and you're sitting in that cell, did you confess that you believed in the story? Yeah. Did you have a Christianity when you were being abused? Did you have a Christianity when you were making every mistake under the earth? Did you have a belief in these tenets of the Bible? Yes. And how did that work out for you? Horribly. How about now? And I can tell you the room is full of people who understand the how about now. It's different now. My life's the best it's ever been, they say. I just let a bunch of them share on Friday. What's been going on? What's the cost to your life of becoming a all-in-there Christian, a giving your life in Christian? It was awesome to hear. I wish you could all hear it. Come on a Wednesday night. You'll hear our young interns and staff sharing what their life is like being all in. But maybe you want that. Right. Maybe it's time. And I think today's Resurrection Sunday, the power of the Holy Spirit is here. I want to tell you the message that Jesus sent me. He chose me to be an apostle. He chose me to culturalize people in the Jesus culture, to teach them what Jesus culture is all about. And I am also an apostle sent under these instructions. I was sent to Oroville by him to teach culture of following Jesus. And I can tell you that he's here. The King is here. Today, right now. I would deny that I see you before I would deny that he's here. I would deny that you're here before I would deny that he's here. He's with me. I'm with him. And he's here today to cause you to be born again. Right. To take your life into his life. He died that you might live. My granddaughter knows that. So that you might live, so that you might live and lay down the life that he gives you so that others might live. If you accept the deal, confess him before men, be there with him before men. I'd like to invite you today to think about that, to become a Christian. Right. Not the way I was a Christian before I met him, or maybe the way you were a Christian when you said you believed, but an all-in confessing, not denying, but confessing, not letting your actions deny him and your words confess him, wow, but all in, bought with a price, owned by somebody. I sell you my life. Nothing for everything.